Okay, welcome to Module 5 of Catharsis Music Theory class. Up until now, we started off with talking about half steps and whole steps, distances. Then we moved into discussing intervals and what they sound like in intervals, what the distances are, how we measure them. In essence, intervals are 2 notes at a time, or maybe a succession of 2 notes. So now we're moving into building on that, where we start talking about 3 notes at a time. This is what a chord technically is. We've mentioned before in the class this guitar power chord term, but technically a chord is 3 notes or more that are played at the same time. It's another word for harmony. Technically, harmonies could be an interval can be a harmony, but when you start talking in theory terms, harmony is really chords. It's more than 2 notes happen at a time. So when you start talking about this, you can have a whole lot of notes happen, and you can plunk down all 12 notes at once, and that's a chromatic chord, but almost nobody uses that. But technically it counts. All 12 notes at once would be called a chromatic chord, right? So what we're going to start unpacking is 3-note groupings called triads. These are chords that are made up of 3 notes. There's a lot of combinations of our 12 slices that we can make 3-note combinations, right? But there are 6 triads that are most commonly used in music all day, every day. So let's start with, of the 6, the first thing we start with is the major chord. So I'm looking at page 39. There's 6 chords, 6 triads we're going to go through. We're going to look at the differences between the 6, and I'm hoping that they get presented in such a way that they make sense. So the major chord is by far the most common chord that's used in Western music. It typically sounds happy, relaxed, and positive, but as we've also been learning, sometimes the major chord can sound spooky. Sometimes the major chord can sound full of tension. It depends on the context that it's used. But if you just play a major chord by itself, typically has a happy, relaxed feeling. Now, the reason why we've been pushing the major scale, the major scale, the major scale, is partly because this primary chord, the major chord, is made up of the 1st, 3rd, and 5th scale degrees of the major scale. Now, quick sidebar, jump in here. We all use a system of theory and harmony that's a tertiary system. You don't have to write this down, but tertiary means something that's based in 3s, okay, or in thirds. So when we go to build chords, when we construct them and we analyze them and we're dealing with them on a theory level, we always build them in terms of thirds, which means if we start with the root of the chord, then we go up a third to a 3 of the scale, then we'll go up a third to the 5 of the scale. You'll find out the next class that the next one would be the 7 and the 9 and so forth. We're always going up in thirds. So when we start building our triads, we start with looking at the diatonic scale degrees 1, 3, and 5. Okay, does that make sense? Now, of that 1, 3, and 5, we're going to find 6 variations on the theme that we're dealing with. So the major chord is the 1, 3, and 5 of the major scale. Okay, now let's look at it. Class, somebody give me a random note, just any note of the 12 slices, somebody. I'm going to go with A because C is too obvious, but thank you for your contribution, Joe. We're going to start with A. Now, you might want to glance at your scale reference sheet if you need to, or have it open while we're going through this. We're going to build an A major chord. So the A major chord is going to be composed of the root, the 3rd, and the 5th of the major scale degree of the A major scale. So the A scale is A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, and of course an A on the end. Of course, but you all knew that because you've been studying and slightly memorizing all of your scales here lately. So we're going to be using this scale. If we're going to build a major chord off the root, 3rd, and 5th, here's the root, here's the 3rd, here's the 5th. So we're going to make a C sharp and an E. Those 3 notes comprise the A major chord. So if somebody says, give me an A chord, you need to give them those 3 notes. All right, now let's break it down for a minute. The distance between the 1st and the 3rd scale degrees of a major scale is how many half steps? Anybody? 4 half steps. Okay? The distance between A and C sharp is 4 half steps. A up to B flat up to B, B up to C, C up to C sharp, 4 half steps. What do we call 4 half steps? Major third. Now, that's great. When everybody shouts at once, it gets really confusing. So, just kidding. Okay, so this distance is called a major third, which we also know as 4 half steps. Now, what's the distance between C sharp and E? Anybody? C sharp goes up to D, D goes up to D sharp goes up to E. It's 3 half steps. What do we call 3 half steps? A minor third, right? So you can make the statement that a major chord consists of a major third with a minor third on top of it. I'm going to say it again. You can say that a major chord consists of a major third that has a minor third on top with these notes. So then, what's the distance between A and E? Perfect fifth. The root, the fifth. Good job, Jenny Hurley. Jenny's been working on trying to catch up from her Trinidad missions trip, so she gets extra candy. Perfect fifth. That was mercy candy because you're getting behind on the class, so you did good. Now, the distance between A and E is a perfect fifth. How many half steps is a perfect fifth? 7. Yay. Now, that's good because 3 plus 4 ought to equal 7. If not, we're in the tall grass. So glance at our little chart there on page 39, right in the middle. There's the half steps in the left column. The distance of 4 of them in the second column gives you that major third, minor third, perfect fifth. We call this a major chord. Total of 7 half steps. With me so far? The major chord consists of the root 3 and 5 of the major scale degree. Now, next page. Let's look at it. On paper, we're going to build some major chords that's there in the middle. And we're going to look at build some major chords. In the first column, it says G major. So under the root, the bottom, we're going to put a G. We know the G major scale, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, and G, because we've all been working on our major scales. We've almost got them memorized where we can just spit them out. So the root, third, and fifth is G, B, and D. No problem. That's our first column. Next column on A flat major, we're going to build an A flat major chord. Now, an A flat scale is A flat, B flat, C, D flat, E flat, F, and G. But you already knew that because you've been going over and over these scales until you got them memorized. Like you know them, like you know the way home from work. The root, third, and fifth of A flat, 1, 3, and 5 is A flat, C, and E flat. There's the answer. I'm going to skip column 3 because we kind of have already done that in our heads. Can everybody agree with me that C, E, and G is the root, third, and fifth of the C major scale? And the people said, amen. We're going to go on to, I'm going to jump over to the last 2 columns, E major and B flat major, and trust that you guys will fill in the rest. Well, I'll just say it for the video. C major is C, E, G. D major chord is D, F sharp, and A. Let's look at the E major scale real fast. That's E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, and D sharp, which you already know because you've been memorizing your scales. So the major is the 1, 3, and 5. So the answer to that column is going to be an E, a G sharp, and a B. Makes sense. Now I'm going to repeat it as Alex, our most verbal student. Can you tell me the B flat major scale off the top of your head? Okay, I'll give you the scale. That means you're going to get a smaller candy. The scale is B flat, C, D, E flat, F, G, A. So what do I put in the root on B flat major? Yes, sir. D is the third. F. Those 3 notes make the B flat major scale. Now, let me say something about the symbology of chords as we're going through. I like this word nomenclature, which is how you are writing out like what words you use and what symbols you use. So when you are describing chords, if you do not say anything, you just give a letter name, it's assumed that you want a B flat major chord. So if you see this B flat, oh, bad color, it's assumed if there's nothing indicated that you want a major chord. So if I just see that, that could be a symbol for B flat major chord, right? I could also see it done this way, or MAJ. B flat major, the real point is if all you see is the letter name, it means major chord. With me so far? Okay. Now that part's probably pretty easy, and in most cases, because even if it's a lot of this is brand new, we've been dealing with the major scale.